Zhou Tu awakens alone on a tiny island floating above an endless sea of clouds, with no food, shelter, or safe path down. The island owner's heart reveals that adults worldwide have been transported into a lethal survival realm where every island can move. Exploration consumes limited crystal energy. Strange islands hold both resources and danger, and anyone stranded away from home becomes permanently lost. While others waste precious energy panicking in chat, Zhou Tu studies the rules and prepares to exploit the mysterious prompts only he can see. Concentrate to communicate with the island master's heart and open the panel. This must be the newbie gift pack that island owner's heart was referring to. Zhou Tu focused his attention on the communication channel. After all, sticking together makes it easier to survive. Open the trade window no one has traded yet. A quick glance at the regional channel revealed that 8 people had already died. Switching to the regional channel is also lively. He remembered Li Jiangping, the person who made the suggestion. Furthermore, as previously warned, the floating islands experience nighttime and are currently still affected by windstorms. Upgrading the island lord's heart only requires basic materials. With time's directions to choose from, Zhou Tu was in a dilemma. Zhou Tu's heart started racing in an instant. Holding the crystal, he connected with the island lord's heart through his thoughts, and soon he felt something pressing down on him, as if he were riding an elevator upwards. His floating island was so small that he even felt it was about to capsize. Looking at the floating island that appeared before him, he saw that this island was much larger than his own, with some trees and a few dilapidated houses on it. Zhou Tu, carrying a backpack and holding an axe and shovel, climbed onto the island. This thought only briefly crossed his mind before he dismissed it. Looking at the miscellaneous items in the backpack, Zhou Tu frowned. Zhou Tu then ran towards the 3 trees in the distance. He finally breathed a long sigh of relief. His island is only 10 meters in diameter, and there's not much space left to build a house. Regional chat rooms, 10,000 out of 9,732. Zhou Tu discovered that more than 200 people had died in such a short time. Feeling that his strength had recovered considerably, Zhou Tu turned his attention back to what was ahead. This information indicates that all 3 floating islands contain monsters. Without hesitation, he stepped onto the moving floating island on the right. Zhou Tu put the treasure chest directly into his spatial backpack. The important task now is to plunder the island for supplies. More than 20 pieces of stone material are considered 1 unit of stone at the heart of the island. Living on a floating island is incredibly difficult. The materials obtained from the 2 explorations were enough to build the house based on the yellow blueprint. These are all potential threats, but the island lord's heart simply hasn't pointed them out. Zhou Tu is now relaxed, but he feels increasingly uneasy and his mind keeps wandering. Once selected, it cannot be changed unless it is removed. He had originally planned to make a trade, but unexpectedly, it all fell through. Looking at the small house, he felt a little safer. The small bow times that the system gave me was also placed inside the house. He can't keep hiding from Monster Island and not explore it forever. Zhou Tu felt that some resources could only be produced on certain monster islands, and ordinary islands probably wouldn't be able to produce them. Zhou Tu silently opened Li Jiangping's profile picture. This means that the sandstorm took away at least 400 people. The original green grass on the island suffered. Those who think of eating grass roots instead of exploring floating islands are now forced to explore them because there's no grass left to eat. The remaining options are to rescue the injured elf, or choose between Blueprint Island and another island. Injured elves also have a bonus effect on plants. With the explanation from the island lord's heart, Zhou Tu became even more determined to rescue the elves. Zhou Tu then shook his head, trying to clear these chaotic thoughts from his mind. The most urgent task is to find the injured elf. Time was of the essence, but after half an hour, he had already searched all over the Sky Island and still hadn't found the place the information mentioned. The information states that fairies can promote plant growth, indicating that fairies have a relationship with these plants. If he hadn't been injured, they probably would have attacked him. Seeing that Zhou Tu didn't seem to have the habit of taking action, the orchid in front of him suddenly transformed into a floating sprite. The elves' floating islands could only float randomly, while his island could choose the direction to float. Just as Zhou Tu had predicted, the elf immediately became somewhat dejected when he mentioned being injured. If it weren't for the sudden sandstorm, which consumed a huge amount of energy and damaged her very essence in order to protect these plants, she wouldn't have been injured. When the little elf put away the flowers and plants, he was visibly weaker. Zhou Tu guessed that the strength of the sprites was related to the plants. The moment the little sprite stepped onto the floating island with Zhou Tu, she felt some suppression, as if her body had been seen through. Zhou Tu chose not to receive treatment. If the injury isn't life-threatening, there's no need to treat this grass sprite right now. Zhou Tu thought, that if there were people like Li Jiangping in the regional channel, with such a large population in the world, there must be a lot of elites. Leaving aside the elite organizations such as the armies of various countries. With such a large number of people, the chances of survival are still quite high if they unite to fight for their lives. Since there's no rush, the remaining task is naturally to upgrade the island and expand the area of the floating island. The upgrade requirements for the Island Lord's Heart are 100 soil and 20 stone. He could see the general resources on the island and could choose to exchange high-value items for these basic resources to expand his island. If there were no monsters, he would definitely choose the gold treasure chest. Moving to the left leads to a sand dune. The unprepared sprite was still floating in the air when suddenly the floating island moved rapidly. She gazed at the floating island across the water from afar, but chose not to go ashore. Zhou Tu held the blueprint, on which appeared a sword design. He discovered that the elf seemed to be floating above his house, and he wondered what it was thinking. She was already injured, and now that she had hit her head on the house, she was still dizzy. Zhou Tu glanced at it and realized that it could consume of the island lord's heart to make 10 Tang swords. To Zhou Tu's surprise, some people were using the axe and shovel that the system initially gave them to exchange for food. He is the only one of his kind, and he has the power to set prices. Since they needed iron ore, they naturally continued to produce Tang swords to sell. After all, crafting Tang swords requires energy, and energy is extremely precious in the early stages of the game. 3 Tang swords were listed, but Zhou Tu was not listed. Zhou Tu was not in a hurry. Once the chat channel is established, he and Shiran can chat without restrictions from now on. After the transaction was completed, Zhou Tu did not speak to Shiran any further. The entire island seemed to receive some kind of energy and trembled slightly. Zhou Tu felt it was a waste to use it for speaking. The resources needed to upgrade the island still need to be obtained through trading. As the floating island grew larger, Zhou Tu felt that by then it would be impossible to get rid of it. With such a large population base, there will naturally be people who need it. These people don't understand the importance of energy. The 3 Tang swords listed in the trading channel have been traded. Zhou Tu put 2 Tang swords up for sale. She discovered that the island's area had increased again. Even if all the iron ore is exchanged for resources, there's still a long way to go. Upgrading to a level 10 island within a day will then be no problem. By listing so many items at once, Zhou Tu clearly had a plan to promote himself. One is Iceland, the other is an ordinary island. This time the elf stood directly on the rooftop, so the movement of the floating island had little effect on her. This is a solution that's not really a solution. The spirits in the sky seemed to have some difficulty understanding Zhou Tu. He then discovered that the elves had returned to their island. Since this world has strange creatures like elves, succubi, and giant snakes, his harvest on this unremarkable island was 2 pieces of wood, 3 pieces of stone, and 30 pieces of soil. He changed his exchange of Tang swords for iron ore to 1 Tang sword for 40 iron ore and continued to observe the situation. Zhou Tu calculated that the island could be upgraded 3 levels in a row. The grass sprite was somewhat surprised. At this rate, it would only take 200 days to upgrade the island to the size of her original island. The 1 remaining energy bar has now become 4 bars as the island expands and the island lord's heart upgrades. When he saw Zhou Tu trading Tang swords, he traded without thinking much and got a great deal. Shen Qinghe was the campus belle of his university. Zhou Tu didn't want to comment on how everyone's life was, but this guy actually came to him and asked for a Tang sword right away. Zhou Tu curled his lip. There was no need to pay attention to someone with such an inflated sense of self-importance. His iron ore supply was completely depleted, so Zhou Tu changed the trade price of Tang swords to 20 iron ore. As long as there is a market for Tang swords, he can continue to produce Tang swords in an endless cycle to exchange for resources. Just as he refreshed the trade list, she discovered that Zhou Tu had listed dozens more Tang swords. When iron was scarce, people traded for it, used the iron to make Tang swords, which were then sold, thus creating a cycle. He also glanced at the other people. Regarding this single T, it seems to be the one who found Mizushima back then. After Li Jiangping advised people to use energy cautiously, everyone in the channel was very energy-saving and didn't utter a single word for several hours. Zhou Tu smiled as he looked at the chat. Zhou Tu opened the trading channel and saw that 2 tendons could be exchanged for a Tang sword, and the trade was specifically requested from him. This made him compare himself to Shen Qinghe. The goods he traded were exposed, and with so much time having passed and news of Monster Island emerging, weapons naturally became the most sought-after items. With such a large population, the Tang sword he hung there would naturally disappear very quickly. Previously, selling 2 Tang swords was enough to upgrade, but now selling 10 swords wouldn't even get him 1 level up. Before the day had even passed, the elf, seeing the changes on his island, began to speak. He currently lacks any nighttime lighting equipment, making it dangerous for him to move around. He didn't plan to operate at night, and he had run out of energy. One person on an island, even with a chat system, could potentially develop mental health issues in the long run. The elf remained silent, and Zhou Tu had nothing to talk about with her, as they were two different races. Zhou Tu scoffed, saying that instead of wasting time on talking big, they should fight back. Some people even used up all their island lord's heart energy during the day and died without sending a message. Zhou Tu looked at the heart of the island lord and his eyes lit up. Zhou Tu estimated that this business wouldn't last long. Zhou Tu then fell into a deep sleep. Since most people were fighting the typhoon last night, not many people traded Tang swords. Zhou Tu quickly rejected his previous idea. Crafting high-level resources and exchanging them for soil and stone is the correct choice. Having figured this out, Zhou Tu felt a little annoyed with his decision yesterday. Psi times energy points is quite a lot. Zhou Tu deeply understood why there was a time limit of only 1 hour to stay on an island. Avoiding overexploitation was crucial. As soon as Zhou Tu arrived on the island, he saw the golden treasure chest. Zhou Tu left the island. The soil on the island could be dug up to several dozen units. After exploring the island yesterday, he found he had enough resources to make a water condenser. Producing 1 liter of water per hour is quite efficient. 1 liter of water can be exchanged for 100 units of soil. After all, the combined price of these items is comparable to his Tang sword. Some people do encounter islands with water. The real powerhouses are all quietly developing their strength, like the top players on the leaderboards, who are never seen speaking. Condensers can retain their value to a certain extent. Zhou Tu glanced at it and realized that the Tang sword was no longer effective for him. The question is how much to price the condenser. Zhou Tu glanced at the upgraded island. It still had 7 bars of energy left today. The island around Zhou Tu has given her hope. The steel, glass, and stationary cars made Zhou Tu feel as if he had returned to his original world in an instant. Following Zhou Tu, she saw many islands. But this island was beyond her comprehension. Just as Zhou Tu arrived at the Mechanical City Island, the chat channel exploded with excitement. As the player with the highest island points, Zhou Tu's score changes are constantly being watched. Zhou Tu suddenly put a drink-making product on the market, which was like detonating a bomb. This makes Zhou Tu truly an elite member of the floating islands. This forced Shenqing to weigh her own worth and decide how to treat Zhou Tu in the future. Originally, thanks to Li Jiangping's explanation, everyone in Zhou Tu's regional channel cherished their energy. Zhou Tu said a few words to the elf, telling him to be careful, and began to explore on his own. Now it seems that the size of an island is actually related to its size. One cannot only see the car in front of him. There are many things inside the mechanical city waiting for him to explore. This shows that this floating island world not only possesses extraordinary power, but also technological power. Thinking about this, Zhou Tu felt a little heavy-hearted. The floating island world was indeed dangerous. It looks like a power plant will also need to be built on the floating island. In terms of blueprint quality, blueprints are classified into yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. The prism tower requires some top-tier materials and supporting measures, making its construction extremely difficult. Standing on his own floating island, Zhou Tu watched the massive floating mechanical city disappear from sight, feeling a pang of regret. The fact that the grass sprite can help collect things indicates that she has already come to accept his island to some extent. If the island expands further, the elves can try planting the plants they obtain. Zhou Tu reviewed the islands explored this time, and the most valuable item was undoubtedly the blueprints for the prism tower. Steel was piled up on one side of the house, and not far away were stone, wood, and iron. Zhou Tu took out the heart of the island lord and checked the grass sprite's condition. It was still injured. Open the trade window and check the status of the traded items. There are always some people in this world who are unhappy and want to amplify the negative impact. The fact that these people are exchanging water condensers now proves that they know how to survive. This put Zhou Tu in a good mood. Zhou Tu glanced at the chat and saw widespread lamentation. This knowledge, which served as a survival tip for future generations, revealed some information and saved many lives. The planks were blown apart, and some small pieces of wood disappeared completely, carried away by the strong wind. Perhaps these natural disasters are part of the evolution of floating islands. The grass spirit planting grass on its own initiative is much better than him urging it. It seems this world truly is a bizarre and wonderful place, with both technology and magic. Building a house requires energy, so Zhou Tu decided to build it at night when the energy refresh time arrived. Zhou Tu kowtowed, took out the blueprints he had collected before, and put them together with the blueprints for the prism tower that he had collected now. Having the ability to choose floating islands, although he always takes the most important things, he can't help but hoard some daily necessities. Many people noticed that he had listed a lot of items and then exchanged them. The island owner's comprehensive rating system was unlocked at level 10, and the island owner's attribute panel was unlocked at level 20. Looking at his own attributes, Zhou Tu was taken aback. There is another function on the attribute panel that is not enabled. It is currently unknown what conditions or means are involved in becoming stronger. Based on the information obtained, extraordinary beings have appeared. So it is also possible that extraordinary humans have appeared. Zhou Tu thought for a moment, used 4 energy points to create 4 new water condensers, and used the remaining 4 energy points for exploration or emergency use. Once sold, they become resources, and the water selling industry is viable. One bundle can be exchanged for 3,000 worth of soil, one bundle for 1,500 worth of stone, and one bundle for 20 pieces of reinforced concrete. Zhou Tu felt that the price of the condenser was set too low now, and that the price of these supplies should be increased when people had more resources. Weapons will be of paramount importance when exploring the island in the future. With the Prism Tower, Zhou Tu had a new goal. In the channel, Zhou Tu discovered many people complaining in the regional channel that someone was stealing supplies. Resources are scarce, and trust between people is almost non-existent. Zhou Tu looked at the water condenser on his island and suddenly felt it was somewhat useless. These seemingly important basic water resources are not so important to him. Islands with stray dogs are also not an option. They're too dangerous. First, because Bison Island is rich in resources. After informing the grass spirit, Zhou Tu moved the floating island. Zhou Tu looked around and saw 10 black bulls above. Pairs of eyes the size of eggs shot over, some with surprise, some with wariness. The fact that the elf can make plants grow on the island indicates that he already has a certain fondness for his island. Even though Bison Island was many times larger than his own island, he still granted it full access. The elf could fly, which attracted the bison's attention. Bison are a resource, and now the goal is to get them to his island. Once humans understand the basic workings of the floating islands and the laws of the sky, they will develop rapidly and attempt to conquer the sky world. Now, attracting the bison to his floating island and disciplining them will take time. He wanted to stir up the emotions of these cattle, make them rush onto his floating island, and use wood to cordon them off. These cows clearly saw that Zhou Tu's floating island was too small, and even though Zhou Tu was provoking them, they stopped at the edge of the floating island. The elf glanced at Zhou Tu in surprise. By controlling the heart of the island lord, select the island opposite that has been explored, and Bison's island slowly disappears from view. Using the materials piled up on the island, the grass sprite managed to return to Zhou Tu's house, leaving a group of angry cows standing on the island. Bewildered, Zhou Tu clenched his fist. Everything was under control. The first is that the value is perceived to be unequal, which leads to the failure. Dancha, Li Qijiang, and even Bear Grylls have not developed any other 4 people. Clicking on Hu Qianlin's profile picture again, Zhu felt a serious aura. Only in the apocalypse, with limited opportunities to chat, can the soldiers of the Xia Kingdom form a cohesive unit that obeys orders without question and develop rapidly. Apart from the Xia Kingdom, there is no other country where soldiers fight for their homeland and family. Many level 1 island owners were also sending him messages, so Zhou Tu set a private chat threshold, allowing only level 5 and above people to chat with him. After carefully reviewing the private messages, he found that Zhang Yiwei and Hu Qianlin had also sent him messages. He was somewhat surprised that the bow and arrow could be exchanged for soil so quickly. He is not a member of the organization like Zhang Yiwei. There was already a lot of water in the condenser. His initial plan was to quickly collect valuable items on the islands. But in reality, the islands he encountered were somewhat unexpected. The bigger the island, the greater the chance of survival. No cows fell off the floating island. These cows, unlike the elves, didn't acknowledge him as the island lord when they entered. To raise more creatures, more land is needed. So the islands need to be upgraded to make the floating islands larger. Zhou Tu still went up and picked up some junk during the mandatory stay period. After 2 times his energy level increased to 3 bars. Planting them might just result in these black cows chewing up the peonies. The island has a hospital with plenty of medical supplies, which would be very useful, but Zhou Tu felt he didn't need them at the moment. Even now, on the trading system page, the water condenser is still listed, but no one is trading it. The higher the level of the floating island, the more confident one's words will be. Zhou Tu felt that as the top scorer on the leaderboard, it was necessary for him to do something that would help the other island owners develop. Without much hesitation, Zhou Tu activated the floating island and headed towards the island with the entrenching tool blueprint. There are also good roads for him to ride his bike. Zhou Tu felt somewhat relieved when he thought about his previous 2 choices. The fact that he has such a resource-rich island today is all thanks to his hard work in gathering information. His island master heart is currently at level 23. and the island's diameter is 33 meters. Apart from the two houses in the center of the island and the newly enclosed cattle pen on the side, the remaining area is not very large. Originally, the plan was to only take the most valuable items from the island. Zhou Tu had no choice but to choose to search the floating islands, where there were not many resources and no powerful creatures. Back on Black Bull Island, his arrows had already missed their mark. Out of the corner of his eye, Zhou Tu looked at the floating island, piled with supplies, and felt somewhat depressed. Soon, Zhou Tu refreshed the trading channel's trading page, covering not just one page of trading items, but several pages of items. Zhou Tu lit the candles he had collected, lay on the bed, ate the food he had gathered during the day, and drank milk. In the Skyblock world, dirt and stone are becoming universal trading items, turning into RMB on the Skyblock, though this isn't obvious yet. The Sky Island points ranking perfectly advertised for him. The benefit of the celebrity effect is that his items are sold off very quickly. Upgrading the floating islands is more important right now. On the leaderboard, among the floating islands of the relevant organizations, Zhang Yiwei, the highest level, has not yet reached level 20. After gnawing on a rabbit leg, Zhou Tu felt full, since he had just eaten something earlier. He put down the roasted rabbit, picked up a bow and arrow, and shot at the wooden planks for a while, practicing his archery skills. Zhou Tu has high hopes for the organization. Zhou Tu used a free loudspeaker to establish a communication channel with Zhang Yiwei. Zhang Yiwei looked at the message sent by Zhou Tu and expressed his understanding. Yes, Zhou Tu was the #1 in the floating island world, and his score far surpassed Zhang Yiwei's, who was second among thousands of people. They discovered that energy is a wonderful thing, and there's never enough of it. All efforts were focused on upgrading the island, and although the soil Zhou Tu needed was a basic resource, it was used as soon as it was dug up. Zhang Yiwei was also troubled by Zhou Tu's question. Many people from the previous team, after learning about them in this world and being persuaded, did not join the newly formed organization. Zhou Tu did not intend to test it. The digging efficiency is 10 times that of before. Zhou Tu smiled. Becoming a supplier behind the organization was his current plan. Skyworld is best suited for lone wolves. Zhang Yiwei privately messaged Hu Qianlin, Huang Yao, and Qian Yuntian about Zhou Tu's conditions. After waiting for a while, there was still no news from Zhang Yiwei. If the discussion fails to reach a conclusion, Zhou Tu will put the entrenching tool on the trading channel as soon as daytime arrives, making it available to the world. In just 2 days, Shen Qinghe learned about the cruelty of the world, and she no longer felt arrogant when talking to him. Zhou Tu witnessed an exchange with a man named Wu Yong. Once the blueprint is created on an island, it becomes an imprinted item belonging to the island lord's heart and cannot be traded. Zhou Tu believes that blueprints for a manual juicer are acceptable. Looking at the juicer blueprints in his hand, Zhou Tu also felt that they were useless. Only after most people have survived harsh environments and live comfortably will they have the extra time and inclination to use a juicer. After thinking for a moment, Zhou Tu shook his head. The island was hit by a storm at night, and some plants were covered by sand. The current priority is still expanding the floating islands. 50 bundles still amount to 50 units of soil material. 50 entrenching tools were given to Zhang Yiwei's organization, and in return 50 units of soil were promised that night. The entrenching tool, a revolutionary tool for digging, was created specifically to expand the area of the floating island. They didn't trust Zhou Tu much, and Zhou Tu didn't trust them much either. Zhou Tu could easily be listed on the trading channel. Upon seeing Zhou Tu's transaction information, he understood that Zhou Tu had actually directly manufactured 200 entrenching tools. Zhang Yiwei was actually siding with an outsider. Pokemon is still injured since it was acquired. Remembering his promise to the elf, Zhou Tu made up his mind. Instantly, the grass sprite felt the available power on the island rushing into her body, filling it to the brim. Zhou Tu observed the state of the elves from the heart of the island lord. The grass elf was now at its peak. When the island grew larger, the land and animals would need the spirit to manage them. The grass, which had been buried, burst forth from the sand as if it had taken a tonic. With 16 energy points remaining, Zhou Tu secretly resolved to explore carefully during the first sea-times hours of the day, and to thoroughly explore any islands rich in resources. Shen Qinghe also scrolled down to the interface to check the island owner's points. Shen Qing counted silently and then fell silent. Looking at Zhou Tu's name, which had a high score, a determined glint flashed in his eyes after a moment. Holding the island lord's heart, she decided to explore the unfamiliar island to try her luck. Fortunately, the chat room used real names and had a limit on the number of chats. There's no need for the #1 island to lie. Many people are truly in dire straits, but no one is offering help anymore. Soon Shi Yiran traded the entrenching tool through the trading channel. Shi Yiran fell silent. looking at the white clouds drifting in the distance. Today was his first time exploring an island, and Lady Luck wasn't on his side. Zhou Tu has already adapted, and he didn't have any good results yesterday. There's no need to look at that kind of island now. Injuries are inevitable, and in that time the hemostatic herb will become a divine herb in the sky world. He can directly hang them on the floating island to sell herbs. Without the elves, Herb Island would have been nothing special to him, but with the elves, everything changed. There are many plants here that she has never seen before. Collecting and cultivating unfamiliar plants will help develop her abilities. A green light suddenly appeared in the small hand that the other party had conjured. The herbs in the herb bush flew out of the soil and disappeared into the other party's hand. This is all humus-rich black soil used for planting medicinal herbs. While digging for medicinal soil, he also looked at the properties of other herbs, some of which increased blood and chi, and others that increased physical strength. Cultivating medicinal herb fields requires land area, and even black cattle need living space, not to mention the storage of many supplies. Open the trading channel and check how well the entrenching tool is selling. Zhou Tu was somewhat intoxicated by the abundance of resources. He had never had such a wonderful start. There should be a more convenient way to collect islands later. The materials required for the next upgrade are 2,700 soil and 280 stone. They discovered that the black cattle outside were startled. The expansion of the huge floating island had caused the black cattle inside the pen to run around and bellow wildly. The circular island has expanded considerably, greatly increasing its area. She didn't care what method Zhou Tu used to make the floating island so big. She was only interested in what was in front of her. A small hand cast a green light, and Zhou also discovered some seeds mixed in with it. Following Zhou Tu to many other islands, she discovered a tall, broad-leaved tree with lush foliage, and the answer became clear to her. The grass spirit has this ability, and it seems that it can now bring back some fruit tree seedlings or vegetables to plant on the island. The island master's heart has now reached level 50. If the island master's heart hadn't prompted him, Zhou Tu would have paid almost no attention to the increase in the stability of the floating island. He just felt safe before. He was afraid of falling at any moment, but now he felt none of that. The grass spirit planted a row of sea buckthorn directly on the edge of the floating island. Once a blueprint is synthesized, the original blueprint disappears, and a new blueprint appears. The first two are somewhat useful, but the blueprint synthesis part is now somewhat useless. Once these people had shovels and their production efficiency increased, they had the resources to buy them. Upon seeing the message, he realized he needed to act with magnanimity. Don't be like in other worlds where the rich only enjoy themselves. Those adorned silk robes are not the ones who raise silkworms. This has always been the case. Perhaps what Shi Yiran said was true, or perhaps he made up a story to gain his sympathy. The floating island's defense system needs to be established. Its own attributes need to be improved, and rare resources need to be collected. He confided in Zhou Tu, a big shot, through a free channel, and felt much better. Shi Yiran shoveled down, and the shovel collided with the soil on the island, with a hiss sound. The first tier pulled the second-place player up by 30 levels. Zhou Tu processed the messages briefly, and planned to continue exploring other islands. That means building a house or digging a cellar on the floating island to perfectly conceal one's presence. For some reason, there wasn't a single top player in the group she used to be in. After scrolling through the group chat, Shen Qinghei's mud-covered face froze. The big shot on the leaderboard, her classmate, the person she messages every day but never replies to. Shen Qing smiled. This was the first time she had smiled in days. Yesterday, she also discovered that Zhou Tu had listed many items on the channel, some of which were being sold below market price. As for an alliance, she hadn't even considered it. As previously mentioned by the island lord's heart, floating islands hold infinite possibilities. Zhang Yiwei was speechless at Huang Yao's antics. Zhou Tu trusted them because he was aware of their real-world identities, which led to this cooperation. There are relatively few floating islands such as city blocks, islands, or buildings. Even if the treasure chest is gold, he will definitely choose to get the fruit tree. With the grass sprite, the cost-effectiveness of this fruit tree will be greatly improved. Fortunately, he had help. Zhou Tu called upon the elf, who had come to the island with him. Arriving at the base of a tree, Zhou Tu shoveled down. They dug up a few units of soil containing earthworms, which Zhou Tu plans to bring back. From the forest island, his island's edge looks like it's wearing a grass ring, with vines hanging down from the edge. Zhou Tu knew that his mindset had changed. The elf Bicha, who had returned with them, wore a smile. Bia took out the yellow flower fruit tree from her space. If rabbits in this sky island world can increase attributes, eating other creatures must also increase attributes. He obtained a yellow flower fruit tree, which can increase his attributes, and some earthworms, which can change the soil on his floating island. There were piles of stone, steel, and ore next to his house. They were directly pulled from the trading channel and piled up using the heart of the island owner. Zhou Tu then went into the room, opened a bottle of cola, and lay down on the wooden bed. There are fewer people chatting idly, and more people being pragmatic. Fewer people are filled with anxiety, or they are simply swallowed up by the sky world. Zhou Tu began to understand why Shen Qinghe spoke in that way. After all, Shen Qinghe had sent him messages for 3 consecutive days, without him replying to a single one. So she was just using this method to attract his attention. Anyway, there's no harm in saying nice things. So, just praise them as much as possible. Just like now, when he sees these people praising him, he can't help but smile. This didn't seem like something Shen Qinghe would do with ulterior motives. It was a genuine offer. As soon as Zhou Tu stepped out of the house, he saw that the entire floating island was yellow and white. The yellow flower fruit tree had just been planted, and Elf Bia was tending to it. The trees that grow tall do provide a barrier, but they can't stop a storm that fills the world with sand. If medicinal herbs cannot be planted within 10 days, they will lose their activity. He has enough water to drink, but plants need water, and the shortage is huge, not something that can be solved by a few liters or milliliters. Zhou Tu glanced at the heart of the island lord. Upon arriving at the location where the materials were piled up, Zhou Tu discovered that a lot of loose sand had accumulated beneath them. After traveling around the floating islands, Zhou Tu roughly estimated that there were about 10 units of soil collected. The island lord's heart is currently at level 53, with energy 37 out of 63. The island lord's heart currently has 37 energy points remaining. There were only 20 people trading dirt, and he increased the dirt exchange rate to 1,500 units. Only by exploring the sky world can he become stronger. Zhou Tu thought to himself that it was a pity. This warning from the bees indicates a very dangerous situation, and it involves a special type of bee. The remaining islands are the Water Island and the Farm Tool Island. The island has no creatures that threaten him, which is quite nice. Just as Zhou Tu was exploring the island where agricultural tools and equipment were being produced, Xu Ming was the one who bought Zhou Tu's shovel in the morning. 10 times the digging efficiency is a huge advantage for an honest man like him. With this shovel, he had no choice but to support Zhou Tu. Ever since Zhou Tu became the top-rated player on the island, she had paid special attention to anything related to him. Zhou Tu's chat logs mentioned a lot about Sky Island, including creatures like giant snakes, mosquitoes, and hurricane eagles. The resulting commotion was completely different. A wild boar on the opposite island charged and launched an attack. Unable to break in time, the wild boar smashed its head through the wooden wall opposite, leaving its head stuck on one side of the plank. That was a cool stab, piercing straight into the wild boar's rear end. Now it seems that what was said was indeed true. This pig is even more outrageous. It's still uncertain whether this injury is enough to kill the pig. Keeping it on the island is just sting her time. On Tool Island, Zhou Tu rode his motorcycle back and forth frantically. After exploring the island, he discovered that this Tool Island was actually a water pump manufacturing plant. He was provided with some tools such as wrenches, because back on the previous Mechanical City Island, he had a hard time even dismantling a table. These supplies can be said to have propelled him from into the semi-mechanical age. This is a wind-affected area. These machines will be damaged by the sandstorm if left outside. After upgrading, plan where to build rooms and where to store resources. The Island Lord's heart is currently level 63 with energy, 20 C times out of 73. Now that the floating islands have grown larger, he needs to plan their future development. Floating islands without a development direction and plan will inevitably become chaotic in the future. The use of land on each island is determined based on the existing resources. After a moment's thought, Zhou Tu realized that the Island Lord's ability to fly was extremely useful. Every 10 levels, the heart of the island unlocks small bonuses. This feeling was not like being on an airplane or in a hot air balloon, but rather like floating up on his own, a feeling of power and self-control. These black bulls posed no threat to him from then on, and he could even directly invade the territories of some ground animals. Zhou suddenly realized that the indifference was actually a damned sense of superiority. Fly into the air and release the materials temporarily stored in the trading space for construction. The shape of the wall built by Zhou Tu is a plus sign. The plus wall is 10 meters long and 8 meters high. Soon he had built 20 walls, 5 in each of the 4 directions, east, southwest, and north, arranged in a staggered pattern to form a windbreak wall. Looking at the wall that had been built, Zhou Tu fell into deep thought. He thought of the highest peak on Earth, Mount Rama. When the temperature drops and ice and snow condense in the mountains, the melting ice and snow can nourish the entire island. He could kill these creatures as he pleased, but he couldn't deny the role these small species played. The worst outcome is that she is injured and cannot move, But in his opinion, not moving is still a good thing. Many people feel hopeless about life and choose to end their lives. This is much more convenient than him, painstakingly filling water containers and transporting them to his island. His eyes swept downwards, and he saw that Zhang Yue had sent him a message recommending that he add Huang Yao as a friend. Zhang Yue fell silent after reading Zhou Tu's reply. It seems the other side has its own ideas about tomorrow's free loudspeaker service. They're really well planned. During this period, his island only reached level 7, and that was with the help of shovels and the efforts of thousands of people. His supplies, including food, were piled up from the ground to the roof, making the whole house a warehouse. The first half of the day was very fulfilling, but it also deviated from the plan he had made in the morning. For example, items like condensers and bows and arrows, which seemed expensive in the early stages, now appear to be priced rather low. This week's plan to explore resource-rich islands was not ideal. He's afraid his brother will suffer, but also afraid his brother will drive a Land Rover. With the previous hints, many people have put in a lot of effort to improve their island owner's heart level. People discovered that exploring unfamiliar floating islands was very tiring. A weapon similar to a Tang sword costs 500 units of dirt outside. Why not just rob them? With abundant supplies, even without exploring the island, one can survive in the sky for more than 10 days. Shen Qingxie silently watched the screen. She knew Zhou Tu, but Zhou Tu didn't reply to her messages. She herself can't even get close to Zhou Tu. Yet these people are still fantasizing about getting to know Zhou Tu through the media, which is rather presumptuous. Shen Qinghe glanced at the floating island and found it to be small, which instantly disappointed her. If they were powerful, they wouldn't have such a small floating island. Shen Qinghe recognized the girl as Li Yeru. Forming an alliance would benefit her, as she could act together with the other party in the future. The two have their own strengths and can complement each other. Shen Qing's revealed that she knows Zhou Tu in real life. 5 explorations. Psi times options each time. A total of 30 options. None of them were good. After all, his ability is to gather information, not to fight. Development is the key. This is an island rich in water resources inhabited by sea turtles. First to be ruled out are Golden Treasure Chest Island, Black Soil Island, and Wild Kun Island. During these days of gathering information, Zhou Tu discovered that many people were sick with colds, with negative buffs stacking up. In this world devoid of trust, without anyone's help, survival is virtually impossible. The water island is something the elf keeps nagging about. The floating island needs water so she can cultivate plants. If the floating island became larger, it would be easier to plan. There are several wind turbines standing on top, with 3 blades on each turbine motionless. The white paint on the pillars supporting the wind turbine blades has peeled off, revealing rusted steel, indicating that they have been abandoned for a long time. Upon entering the house, Zhou Tu discovered that it was the central control room for controlling wind power generation, and there were also some books about wiring inside. The higher the quality of the blueprint, the more materials are required, and these materials are relatively difficult to collect. Sky Island world is so vast, there must be materials available. Ultimately, what happened exceeded the original plan and took some time. With 20 energy points, and using full power for the rest of the time, only 12 energy points were used, leaving a surplus of 8 energy points for the day. His goal was to find high-level blueprints and resources. After all, it takes time to take supplies out of the backpack, and it also takes a decision to choose which island to go to. He then built several more houses that were directly connected to his original house. Once the wind power plant is built, it will mark the beginning of the electricity era. Bedia noticed the changes in Zhou Tu's surroundings and immediately flew in. The elves not only had farming capabilities, but also some building capabilities. After Bedia left, Zhou Tu looked around the room, his previous interest completely gone, and he felt utterly bored. Zhou Tu's items were put on the shelves, and the group members who were always keeping an eye on his movements spoke up. In just 3 days, the lessons learned from the loss of life have taught people to conserve energy. Zhou Tu thought that if he could create a blueprint for the Fikun Cup, it would definitely sell like hotcakes. After all, some of the items Zhou Tu listed before were below market price, making them rare bargains. These shovels can be converted into resources to upgrade the island, and the upgrade will generate energy again, forming a cycle. In the Sky Island world, the quality of trust is especially important, and he also returned the collateral. Zhou Tu carefully read the message Zhang Yue sent, and found that there were some things in it that he could learn from. Casualties are inevitable, but Zhang Yue's organization has done its utmost to avoid them. Tens of thousands of people band together to obtain resources. With the combined efforts of tens of thousands of people, the development of the floating islands is now gaining momentum. Apart from him, people like Bear Grylls have to step down from the list. Since Zhang Yue had provided the survival guide, Zhou Tu decided to pass on the information as a favor. There are tens of thousands of resources, not to mention that it's impossible to collect only one unit. Qian Yuntian was the one who opposed his raising the price of soil for Zhou Tu during the day. They have 15,000 soil, and each person can level up several times. But for Zhou Tu, it means Zhou Tu can level up 2 times. With just one sentence from the big boss, a tycoon turned a tycoon's calamity into a bountiful harvest. The organization returned 75,000 units of soil, and the goods put on the shelves were exchanged for about 20,000 units of soil resources, totaling about 95,000 units. The Island Lord's heart is currently level 63 with 0 out of 73 energy. Everything can be measured in soil and stone units. Material prices are lower at night because soil and stone are used to upgrade the island. When they see these things, they will realize that these are what Zhou Tu, the big shot in the channel, wants. No matter how much he sells these shovels, he won't lose money. There's no such thing as losing money. The only limitations are energy availability and market saturation. With such a low price, some people may question or misunderstand it, and those who bought things before may criticize him. This looks like a batch of entrenching tools made from the energy gained from the recent upgrade. Psi times 100 dirt, that's such a great price. With nearly 1.3 million ratings, there's absolutely no sense of community. Now their 2 islands are connected, forming an 8 shape, moving forward and backward together. This shovel has long been part of a trading system. These people are the ones who curse the most, but they don't hold back at all when it comes to hitting. She had already probed Zhou Tu by sending him messages several times, and found out that Zhou Tu didn't have any feelings for her. In Shen Qinghe's eyes, the windstorm was raging, and nothing could be seen outside. Liru breathed a long sigh of relief. If she were alone, she would have buried her head in the sand like an ostrich. Her only advantage is that she and Zhou Tu were classmates before, although their relationship wasn't that good, but this is an advantage that others don't have. The windstorm was indeed intensifying, and the makeshift wooden house needed to be upgraded. People learn from their mistakes and become more cautious, even haggling over a single unit of soil. Only a tycoon like Zhou Tu can do whatever he wants and clear out some supplies for the sake of energy. 50 entrenching tools were converted into cash in a very short time. The oppressive feeling in the sky world was too strong. Zhang Yue values his reputation highly, which is rare in the sky world. These people first made grand pronouncements in the channel, acting as strategists. They acted superior and pointed fingers, and now they've become online beggars. He truly understands how to use the keyboard. His Island Lord's heart was already at level 70 times, and every 10 levels unlocked a small bonus. In the world of Sky Island survival, rest is extremely important. For him, the quality of rest is a great bonus, allowing him to be full of energy every day, which is very helpful for exploring the island and making decisions. Zhou Tu lay in bed, thinking about how to use the energy. The treehouse the elf promised is a minor matter. After hearing Zhou Tu's news, he set up the sand-blocking wall. There were 2 storms that night, and he had only built a makeshift sand-proof wall on his island, which was only around level 20. Each storm gave him nearly 5,000 units of soil for free, which amounted to more than 10,000 units of soil in one night. The rating hasn't changed, which means the sand blocked by the sand wall around the path hasn't been used yet, and the score will increase again later. They ruthlessly crushed Huang Yao, a disloyal element, which improved his mood. Huang Yao doesn't dare to question Zhang Yue now because Zhang Yue divided the family property fairly. Huang Yao has no right to speak. Seeing that Huang Yao hadn't replied to the message for a long time, Hu Qianlin knew that he had touched Huang Yao's pride. Zhou Tu used the heart of the Island Lord to check how many units of the accumulated soil there were. The materials required for the next upgrade are 7,000 Psi times 100 soil and 780 stone. The Black O times lay down in the feed pen, much more at ease, leisurely chewing on the plants that Bethia had induced to grow. A sound like shattering glass came from inside the entire floating island. The only drawback is that the moisture on the floating island has been almost completely depleted, making it difficult to encourage new growth. Now the soil on the floating island and the original sand-blocking nets have been used up, and the entire floating island is not as crowded as before. Due to the increase in the island's area, the originally low-lying sea buckthorn on the outermost edges has become the inner edge. This means the island's diameter is 118 meters. The floating island, which was 80 square meters, became 930 square meters. Zhou watched as the Island Lord's heart in his hand turned from white to dark yellow. The channel was overflowing with messages. His world chat, regional chat, and private chat all had 999 plus unread messages. From over 80 square meters to tens of thousands of square meters, they gained direct land freedom. The world of survival lacks a sense of security, but Zhou Tu unintentionally gave everyone a boost of confidence. He was out of supplies and about to die, yet people kept tagging him, begging for help. Zhou Tu fell silent after his initial joy. Yes, don't be fooled by the high levels of the people on the leaderboard. This is the 4th day in the floating island world. Most people use primitive shovels, which are very inefficient. It's just that he single-handedly boosted the channel's development, while Zhang Yiwei and Hu Qianlin were the real big shots who were developing normally. Just like in real life, some people live in luxury, with sports cars and beautiful women, while others can't even afford to eat. His level 100 island is the best marketing strategy. After Zhou Tu sent the message in the world chat, the entire world chat paused for a few seconds. This celebrity effect could save countless floating islands and give them hope. If these people learn to utilize the sandstorms brought by natural disasters and transform them into resources, life on the floating island will gradually improve, and these people will survive. The island owner can control the energy of the island owner's heart, define a certain area, and buff the plants and animals within that area, allowing them to grow rapidly. If they could find more plants like the yellow flower fruit tree that add attributes, this function would be much more useful for accelerating plant growth. Today, he plans to save 18 energy points for exploration, with 100 points to craft shovels, and by selling those shovels, his island can easily be upgraded dozens of levels. All 100 energy points were used to craft entrenching tools, resulting in the production of 0 entrenching tools. 3 or 4,000, 5 or psi times 1,000, is not something that grassroots workers can afford. 100 entrenching tools can be exchanged for steel to maintain the cycle of buying and selling shovels. With the island's self-rotation function, he would not need to build such a cross-shaped device that could block sand from all directions. Simply use materials to divide the round island into semicircles, forming a crescent shape. After placing the trade, Zhou Tu checked the time and realized how quickly it had passed. They are mindless but programmed to attack intruders at will. It's extremely sensitive. It will attack the slightest disturbance. The island of flying, poisonous monsters was eliminated by Zhou Tu. The floating island on the left turned out to be a giant man-eating plant, the first time he had ever encountered one. To the right was an island of venomous snakes, which Zhou Tu also ruled out. After eliminating all the options, Zhou Tu has 2 choices. Previously, there were no houses optimized with steel, making it very difficult to deal with these creatures. This way, his island would have carnivorous plants that could serve as plant defenses. She worked hard to build a small grove on the east side, and the yellow fruit trees are growing well, surrounded by rings of outer trees. Now that he has encountered the man-eating flower island, he still needs the elves to step in, activate the island, and begin approaching the floating island with the carnivorous plant. The islands moved swiftly, as if shuttling back and forth. Soon the floating island of man-eating flowers came into his view. There were those asking for help, those showing off their gains, and those who discovered something interesting. Blueprints are very powerful. Even a simple Tang sword blueprint can be very useful. If the island lord's heart is not upgraded, it will only have a limited amount of energy per day, resulting in a limited supply of resources. Furthermore, once a blueprint is used by the island lord's heart, it cannot be traded away. He is not afraid that these people will obtain the blueprints, develop their skills, and disturb him. Even if he could make 10 entrenching tools a day, he would be nothing more than a drop of water in a vast ocean when faced with billions of people. Zhou Tu did not immediately accept the offer, but instead contacted Ron Yichen privately. Zhang Yiwei asked him to give Huang Yao a chance, but he ignored him. Clearly, this was exactly what Ron Yichen was planning. Even if he didn't reciprocate, Ron Yichen would definitely make a profit because he gained access to information. There's always a request behind every gift, and he didn't want so many entanglements. In the future, when it encounters some small animal islands, it can simply rotate the island, connect the magical area, and let the carnivorous plants devour them. Seeing how serious Zhou Tu was, and that he had made a promise. A few days have passed, and the floating island era has changed. The elves are now afraid of him and no longer want her. The balance of power shifts. Initially, upgrading the island lord's heart only required 100 units of soil, but now it requires 10. They frantically collected soil to ward off the approaching windstorm. When the wind comes from that direction, it can rotate the island to face the wind, which is a capability that other islands do not have. This time, he piled up multiple layers, fearing that the wind would blow the stones down. 35 units of stone were smashed down. Zhou Tu feels that the plan to acquire so much stone is a wise choice. 20 carnivorous plants are arranged in a fan shape and hidden behind a row of trees. If other animals wander in and pass by the area where the man-eating plant is located, they can become its food. If his attributes were strong, he could be completely unleashed. The elf probably also had this kind of knot in his heart, which is why he behaved the way he did before. After all, if there's a wind-affected area, there's bound to be another one. The water island is crucial. It's the foundation for the development of the magic area. His island had undergone a huge change, becoming vast in size and inhabited by carnivorous plants. The view changed rapidly, as if time was rewinding quickly around the island. Upon seeing his floating island approach, a hint of human-like shock was clearly revealed in his bright eyes, and he immediately stood up. The tiger was rather thin and looked like it hadn't eaten in a long time. Even its skin was wrinkled. Zhou Tu used his own strategy, luring the tiger away from the island, and stood in a conspicuous place. Upon seeing him, the tiger's eyes still turned somewhat red. The tiger that had rushed to Zhou Tu Island suddenly realized that the person who had provoked it was gone. Seeing that the black bull had attracted the tiger's attention, the tiger had already walked towards the black bull when Zhou Tu emerged from behind a tree. The hungry tiger could not kill these black bulls. The black veins on the seed were clearly visible. Cultivating it and building a treehouse on the world tree would also be a good option. Plants need to be stimulated to grow, and it took a lot of effort from the elves to transplant the large-mouthed flower today. Before Zhou Tu could move the island, suddenly a very small island gradually appeared in the distance. The animals in the floating island world have different personalities, and it would be bad to encounter a violent animal. The coordinates of the face-to-face connection have been confirmed. That island belongs to the tycoon Zhou Tu. Knowing that this was Zhou Tu's island, he had no intention of landing on it, let alone robbing it. He wanted to directly hand over his island's heart and become an islander on Zhou Tu's island. Adding a friend without consuming energy was also an option. He wasn't familiar with Shi Chaoqiang. He had only seen him say a few words in the regional channel. As Zhou Tu Island was about to leave, Shi Chaoqiang saw a tiger emerge from behind a pile of materials. The weakened tiger was kept in captivity by Zhou Tu. The probability of encountering an island with water is not very high, but the accumulation of events and the targeted selections still led him to encounter an island with water. Shi Chaoqiang recalled that when he left, there were tigers on Zhou Tu's island. Originally, Shi Chaoqiang wasn't planning to say anything more after he finished speaking, since he only had so much energy left. He had seen it with his own eyes, and the other party asked all sorts of questions that he couldn't answer. He discovered that the piled-up materials were the sand-blocking walls that Zhou Tu had previously discussed. Shi Chaoqiang looked in the direction where Zhou Tu disappeared and activated his floating island to rush towards the place where Zhou Tu disappeared. Taking advantage of the time when the money was released, Zhou Tu opened the trading channel. 5 loaves of bread can be exchanged for 1 unit of soil. Most people want to use entrenching tools to improve the efficiency of obtaining soil resources, so he controls the pricing power. The Island Lord's heart is currently at level 108, with 10 out of 118 energy. The construction of the sandproof wall undoubtedly gave them a head start. He brought the water pump back to prevent the upgrade of the island from breaking the pipes and severing the connection with the opposite island. Zhou Tu didn't concern himself with the water issue. Instead, he prepared for an upgrade. The idea that man can conquer nature influenced him. His short-term goal is for the island to be 10 meters in diameter. Now 11 shovels are upgraded to level 1. When there are more shovels for sale in the channel, the price of soil resources will be lower. The magic area already has carnivorous plants, yellow fruit trees, and now with water resources, the elves will plant all the herbs, and the foundation is almost complete. If the tiger goes over, Zhou Tu is worried that he may not come back. After the island upgrade was completed, Zhou Tu rearranged all the stones. The tiger was so startled it almost jumped up, but seeing Zhou Tu in the air, it could only roar a few times, its fury bordering on impotence. The tiger couldn't resist eating, and Zhou Tu smiled and continued to pet it. The soil brought in through these trades and the soil brought in by the windstorm were all ordinary soil. With limited daytime hours, spending too much time on each island means that only a few islands can be explored in a day. This reduces the risk of exploration, but also diminishes the possibility of exploration. Overall, it's a good thing for most people, but it's unclear how long it will take to upgrade an island that's over level 100. Establishing a good relationship with a large organization like Zhang Yi Wei's was still useful. The other party's organization had tens of thousands of people, and the situations they encountered were very complicated. Somewhat surprisingly, even a peculiar creature, like the man-eating plant, has appeared. As expected of the #1 island lord, Zhang Yiwei sensed from the message Zhou Tu sent that the other party was preparing to build a defensive tower. Zhang Yiwei was very grateful to Zhou Tu, but what he wanted to know most now was what kind of bonuses the island's level would bring. Knowing about the bonus effect early on was very important to him. If he had known this information earlier, he could have made plans. by dividing those islands into planting islands, aquaculture islands, and weapon-building islands. A plan can be devised. After replying to the message, Zhou Tu crossed his arms and inspected the machinery area to determine the location of the wind turbine. On the contrary, it allows Zhang Yiwei, a strategist, to make plans earlier. Zhou Tu plans to announce these bonuses directly to the channel to increase the enthusiasm of the people in the channel. From his perspective, he would naturally not allow too many people in the Sky Island world to die. After looking around, Zhou Tu successfully built the wind turbine. The rusted wind turbines on that island were much larger than the wind turbines that were actually built. The price isn't too outrageous now, and some people can find it by digging around. He planned to spend some energy to send the bonus from the island upgrade to the channel to encourage the people in the channel to be positive and motivated. The experts impart survival skills. The giants are high above, and they inexplicably make people in the channel think twice before acting. He actually revealed the bonuses from leveling up. Providing valuable information was of great benefit to the development of the islands in the Sky World. The people in the regional channel already understood the situation and were eager to develop the business. Just like the East Asian monster house, even the weakest country in the world can easily defeat many other countries. The medicine that Shi Yaran found could not stop the bleeding, which suggests that Shi Yaran had encountered a special monster. The magical area, after 3 upgrades and the transformation and planting by the elves, has grown 3 layers of protective forest. Even if the sandstorms in the wind-affected area are very strong, they are weakened to negligible levels when they reach the small herb field where the elves are located. All it needs is black soil and water to support its cultivation. After all, world tree seeds sound like a good thing, so it's definitely better to plant them as early as possible. Alloy is the material used to make the prism tower. His island is planted with medicinal herbs, so he is indeed an extraordinary existence. It can be said that those who are still alive have certain abilities, and the information they have revealed is still very useful. Unbeknownst to Sminny, the monsters were appearing more and more frequently, and they were getting stronger. Given his exploration efficiency, the probability of him meeting Shen Qinghe is quite high. The honey they produce can increase the island owner's attributes. The storm that had been clear all day is finally coming this afternoon. Zhou Tu could faintly hear the sound of blades spinning at full speed outside. The daytime typhoon had finally arrived. The poisonous bee island is actually very fragrant and has a high-cost performance. Since he hasn't seen any information about the other islands, Zhou Tu was inclined to go to the island with poisonous bees. Getting the poisonous bees onto the island is a problem. After this celebration, the island size of these people will increase in different ways. She glanced at Zhou Tu's post, which not only revealed the island's bonus effect in the channel, but also called on people to build sand-blocking nets. She only shares good things with her closest people. Even if she caught a rabbit and got the blueprint, she still wanted to share some with Zhou Tu. During the early stages of island upgrades and the accumulation of energy, there was a high volume of activity during the lull in activity when a storm was approaching. The trapped soil was then exchanged for Zhou Tuju's shovel. This wave has indeed made people in the sky rich, and the channel is filled with countless messages of gratitude. Now, if these people work hard, they can at least upgrade the floating island a few levels. These people either use the soil they obtain to upgrade their islands or consume it. The upgraded shovels, which had just been made after the typhoon, when the soil had accumulated, were all bought up by people who had suddenly become rich. He had many blueprints, some useful and some not. Zhou Tu used the mindset of an island lord to make an estimate. The sheer volume of soil demand caused others to abandon digging altogether, turning to despair. Zhou Tuju truly lives up to his reputation as the #1 human in the sky world. Only by releasing the bonus effect, little by little, can one demonstrate their selflessness. The larger the island, the larger the islands it encounters. Upon activation, Zhou Tu felt a change in his overall state. In just a few seconds, they arrived at the forest planted by the elves, and Zhou Tu chose a small tree. With his previous strength, he could have easily broken a small tree with a single punch. Now, with the attribute bonus, it's a piece of cake. Zhou Tu didn't expect that he wasn't short of water, but the forest was. Zhou Tu felt he needed to find Shen Qinghe as soon as possible to be his secretary, the island owner, and handle these miscellaneous matters to free himself up. She had been sending messages to Zhou Tu ever since she first discovered him. This indicates that floating islands can meet each other. The number of monsters in the floating island world was increasing, and many people were having a hard time on the island. When forming an alliance with an unfamiliar floating island, exploration is done in pairs or groups. Li Jiangping invited them to join, not to form an alliance. From then on, they would have no say and, in a sense, would lose their personal freedom. As the other side disappeared, Shen Qinghe flicked Li Yeru's forehead with a flick. He couldn't go up there either, so he finally decided to choose the Poison Bee Island. As long as they stay for 5 days, they can become part of the island and will not attack the island owner. The inventory revealed that there was no filter element, which is an uncommon material. Zhou Tu used the energy of the island lord's heart to create it, and soon a protective suit with a mask appeared. The island lord's heart is currently at level 210, with 55 out of 220 energy. With 50 points of energy, Zhou Tu immediately crafted 500 shovels. Normal people who encounter the island of poisonous bees will not be able to obtain honey at all. Instead, they may suffer great harm. It wasn't very big, about 500 meters in diameter, with lots of flowers and plants and undulating terrain. Things are different now. The floating islands are causing disturbances on both sides. Zhou Tu memorized the location of the bees on the ground and began to move forward. After observing it for a while, he saw black bees, about the size of a little finger, going in and out. Success was within reach, and Zhou Tu was overjoyed. When it was about to come out, Zhou Tu simply covered it with a bag. He naturally had a plan for where to place these poisonous bees. Currently, only the magic zone has strong defenses. This proves that the bees he brought included a queen bee, and the message he left attracted those bees. After the bees were gone, Zhou Tu went into the house, took off his protective suit, and took out a piece of beehive he had clipped from his backpack. He noticed that Betia also seemed to improve as she rose from the trees. She was more energetic and no longer felt tired. This thing needs to be planted by the plant expert Betia. Zhou Tu was somewhat dazed. Even his heart was filled with joy as the elf lured him into a smile. Even if the heart of the island lord boosts plant growth, that's only a later stage benefit. They needed the elves to cultivate plants. The island needed plants to protect it, and the elves needed the island to provide land to grow trees. He now approves of the world tree being planted in the center of the floating island. With the water resources available, and under Betia's management, the trees here had already grown. Zhou Tu discovered that poisonous bees had already come to the forest to investigate. The top 4 remain largely unchanged, firmly in their positions, and have even pulled ahead of the 5th-place team by more than 10 levels. Zhang Yue now uses C times 1,100 units of soil to upgrade 1 level, and the consumption has also increased. The forest is still the foundation for animal activity. The growth of these animals is also a factor. Soon after the announcement, people joined the channel. Some even wanted to join his floating island. Click on the profile picture of the person who made the comment. The newcomer, filled with doubt, clicked into the channel and looked at everyone's information. The people in the channel were sorted alphabetically. Find Zhou Tu's profile picture, click on it, and his level is branded onto his face like a mark. He was a big shot before, a giant, and now he's evolved into a god. Skyworld ranking is indeed a symbol of strength. Battles and looting between the two sides frequently occurred on the island. There are carnivorous plants in the magic area. Biological features include black cattle, tigers, and poisonous bees. Most of the infrastructure for the floating islands is under construction. Use up these energy points quickly, and it will get dark. Perhaps besides the carnivorous plant, there are other aggressive plants. Exploring more islands could be an opportunity to collect them. There were some electronic devices inside. This is the information he saw. Zhou Tu picked up the Coke and glanced at it. It was from 1982. The most serious problem is that the Sky Island world lacks electricity, has no power plants, and has few batteries. So most electronic devices are unusable. Zhou Tu felt that if he built more wind turbines in the future, he could develop an industry and start a charging business to collect fees. After exploring an island with little reward, he could put the items in his backpack directly into these temporary storage chests and continue exploring the next island. Before disconnecting from the floating island on the other side, Zhou Tu noticed that some poisonous bees had flown to the other side to explore. Zhou Tu wouldn't waste time on a few poisonous bees. If the connection is broken and these poisonous bees don't return, they will be forever lost on the opposite island. Now, Zhou Tu's eyes light up whenever he sees an attribute increase. Zhou Tu quickly remembered the fire attack, which was how he had threatened the elves back then. After planning the path for the rabbit to come, Zhou Tu lit a fire on the side. The rabbit burrows on the ground were interconnected, but the wind inevitably blew smoke into them. There weren't many plants in the mechanical area, so the rabbits came to his island and collectively turned towards the adjacent magical area. Those that didn't come may have suffocated or are still hiding. After disconnecting the connection, Zhou used his last 2 points of energy to obtain some miscellaneous items and a blueprint for a kettle. He turned to look at the forest where the elves lived and discovered fluorescent lights dancing in the magical area. The soil project successfully completed 50 transactions totaling 75,000. They then began to wait for a higher price to sell. The shovels are priced a bit high now, but Zhou Tu has decided to monetize them to increase the island's size. Another reason is that others also have shovel blueprints, which increases the competition in the shovel market. The World Chat channel receives tens of thousands of messages per second, making effective communication impossible unless a celebrity is speaking, in which case there is a pause. If it weren't for Zhou Tu's shovels being there, these people's shovels could hold 30 tons of soil each. Comparatively speaking, Zhou Tu's shovel is the most normal. She firmly stands by her own people and has the initiative to eliminate those who pose a threat in advance. This soil can upgrade the island to level 224, consuming 0 units of soil and 0 units of stone. One reason was that people waited for higher prices at night, and another was the emergence of many cheaper alternatives. The materials for shovels are not that scarce. They can be made from steel or iron. The surrounding area has been replaced with stone. The buying and selling of shovels transforms into an energy cycle, which is a quadratic function, first rising and then falling. With the remaining stones, Zhou Tu activated the flight function and arrived at the floating island. Zhou Tu took on the role of wall repairman, but there weren't enough materials, so he only managed to build a short section of wall. After walking around, Zhou Tu discovered some vines growing around the medicinal field. Whenever there was any movement, the elf would go there. They only need a few thousand tons to upgrade their islands. Being the head of this organization is really difficult. The difference between online communication and offline communication is too great. Zhou Tu lay on the bed, picked up some cooked food and started eating, opened the chat channel to gather information. Today is the third day, and still no one offers a helping hand. Tonight, a search revealed so many people placing their hopes for survival on him. Now there are islands larger than aircraft carriers. But apart from him, the only other creatures on this island are animals. In the sky world, many people form alliances and unite to survive together. After careful consideration, Zhou Tu felt that it was worthwhile to invest in the future. For example, if a wind turbine breaks down, it needs to be repaired. It can't be rebuilt using energy every time. Once the medicinal herb field is established, it needs to be managed. The clearance sale price is even higher than Zhou Tu's price. Zhang Yifei's face was wrinkled like an old man on the subway. Now these two have become the king of haste. Xian Yuntian and Hu Qianlin underestimated the people in the channel. His shovel was so good, and he ran off right away. Selling the supplies gives these people the tools and physical strength to dig, and the return is still a profit. Obtaining a blueprint consumes energy, which is essentially plundering the soil from those who don't have a blueprint. In other words, it's plundering the fruits of labor. Zhou Tu opened his eyes. The rest efficiency boost from the island lord's heart was really good. Zhou Tu was looking forward to the sandstorm stopping, so he could properly upgrade the island. The island lord's heart is currently at level 228, with energy 238 out of 238. Zhou Tu loves free loudspeakers the most. Free ones are the best. Zhou Tu had messaged him, and after several days, he finally received a response. He still made his requirements clear, since he didn't want idle people on his island. The first island lord's invitation was indeed something few could refuse, and with Shen Qinghe also showing interest in it was a win-win situation. Luckily, she didn't impulsively go to another island. It wouldn't matter if Shen Qinghe brought one more purses. The energy saved can then be used to cultivate rare plants and animals, and to research related technologies, allowing us to take a significant lead. It is feasible to build up talent reserves in advance, as this is for the sake of going further. This left me with no choice but to cling to someone powerful. The floating island seemed to have come to life, and Zhou Tu felt that the island was developing quite well. Next, while expanding the island's area, it will be necessary to collect various island defense weapons. Zhou Tu noticed a green light approaching him. The change in the elf's appearance must mean that the elf has grown up. He then nodded slightly to see what the elf wanted to say. He also needed his island to become lush with vegetation to accommodate more animals and prepare for the animal army. This time, the island will be larger and its level will increase significantly by approximately 69 levels, consuming about 180 units of stone. Zhou Tu glanced at his blueprint and decided to sell that kind of resource. Zhou Tu opened the trading channel and searched for high prices. Ultimately, the people of the floating island world have only been here for a few days and are still in the development stage. Condensers are useful, but when they come into contact with water islands that produce large amounts of water at once, they become useless. After conducting market research, Zhou Tu decided to focus on selling entrenching tools, which offer good value for money and quick monetization. Use 100 energy points to craft 1,000 shovels, with 138 energy remaining. An entrenching tool was placed on the Zhou Tu platform. When an island reaches level 100, it unlocks the rotation function. Their seeds are dispersed by catapulting into the unknown sky, where they grow on unfamiliar floating islands. The terrain of the floating islands is complex at times, making it easy to get injured. Someone in the channel has a handgun. It looks very powerful. With such a large area as the island, it would be difficult for others to hit him accurately if they were armed with guns. The chainsaw, on the other hand, is a developmental blueprint. After thinking it over, Zhou Tu decided to go to the prison to find weapons. Once guns are found, Zhou Tu feels that bows and arrows are useless, as they can't even shoot Black Bull at long range. This typhoon brought many benefits, making many people's islands much larger. Seeing the words of alliance and counterattack, she was still somewhat moved, as she had also killed someone not long ago. She felt that the world was a cycle. She looks like a technician from a brothel. These people didn't have Zhou Tu's contact information, but she did. The prison left some traces, suggesting a fight had taken place here, and there were bullet holes. After exploring the floating island of the prison with the elves, Zhou Tu returned to the island under cover of darkness. Just as Zhou Tu was organizing the things he had brought, Zhou Tu rushed over and found that the sand pile had been disturbed by something. The windstorm brought sea buckthorn seeds, and now this seed has actually flown over. The pea shooter is quite powerful in the sky world, as it can launch its seeds from another area. Right now, the elves were only showing the ability to grow plants. Night fell, and they exchanged some supplies for a wave of sandstorms, which caused them to level up several times. The reason these people aren't replacing their shovels is probably because, like me, they've used the stone as a sandproofing measure and don't want to remove it. His large-scale collection of soil had attracted everyone's attention. People are starting to pay attention to the trade of basic soil and stone materials. They should be easy to sell during the day. Let's bring Xin Qinghe to the island and have her collect those special materials. Some people from the channel are going hungry all the time. If the island has enough energy, the island owner can use that energy to stimulate the growth of animals. Once the island owner's heart reaches level 190, the bonus function for animal growth in the island owner's area will be unlocked. Substituting the equivalent amount increases the island owner's attributes. The other islands are too dangerous, so let's meet some strangers instead. Zhang Yuze floated on the island, scrolled through the chat channels, and realized it was already late. Suddenly, a whooshing sound came from afar and rushed into the small house. The god of the road probably doesn't care. With such a large island, Zhou Tu must have other means to easily deal with an ordinary island owner. If the number of people in the channel decreases, it means Zhou Tu killed me. Zhang Yuze knew he was safe after seeing the response. Zhou Tu wasn't particularly murderous. He waited for Zhou Tu to appear on the island. Zhou Tu and the elf didn't find much on the island, but they went to an abandoned gas station and found some gasoline and diesel. Based on the past pattern of unlocking at level 100, it is highly likely that a very useful feature will be unlocked. Almost everyone who explored them at night before died. The chat channel contains a huge amount of information. He wasn't very satisfied with the last time the water was pumped out. First, send a message to Zhang Yiwei to see if his people have found the water pump, and trade it over to use it. Zhang Yiwei directly handed them over without even asking when they would be returned. The first transaction involving 50 shovels had already established a foundation of trust with Zhang Yiwei's organization. The transactions were frequent afterward, and he also revealed some information appropriately, which can be considered a complementary relationship. An island with a small hill appeared before him, with a pond below it, its water green and rippling gently. Water is essential for the development of plants on the floating island. These black bulls had become lazy and adapted to life on the floating island. Upon arriving at the tiger's location, Zhou Tu noticed that the tiger was much more wary of him, adopting a defensive posture and even roaring. Black Bull became a resident animal, but to directly command it, one could only cultivate familiarity with it, unless using the ability to dominate. This pond is formed by trees growing together and enclosing it. Zhou Tu felt that if the elves continued to grow, they would be able to control the plants. Zhou Tu also found some mushrooms on the hillside, which were brightly colored in several colors, including red, white, and blue, but he didn't recognize them. Back on the island, Zhou Tu started looking at the trading channel. Shovels are highly efficient and in high demand throughout the world. The island lord's heart is currently at level 228, with energy 119 out of 238. Zhou Tu activated his levitation flight capability and observed from above. Island lord's heart current level 308, energy 199 out of 318. The island is now much larger than the water cube. Only a few black dots could be seen moving quickly in the yellow sand. A moment later, Zhou Tu determined the location of the spring. As long as the water isn't sold directly and is instead circulated around on the island, there won't be much consumption. The land cracks and stones rise up. The plants that are induced to grow are also part of the island's ecosystem. Overall, the spring water given at level 300 is incredibly powerful, making the entire floating island feel like a miniature biosphere. Water with a source will not give in easily. It is still searching for its own path. The turtles inside are once again facing the embarrassing situation of having no water in the pool. The next few days will be spent searching for Shenqinghe within the channel. What Zhou Tu needs to do now is to readjust this arc, extending both sides to the edge of the floating island. The sand-blocking wall should be doubled next time it blocks mud brought by wind disasters. The island is now nearly 80 square meters, and even without deliberate sand blocking, it still holds more sand than some smaller islands. His goal was to find Shenqinghe and Li Yeru and get them to work as soon as possible. All materials, plants, and animals on the island can be converted into points on the leaderboard. This indicates that the floating islands around Zhou Tu are extremely rich in resources. When the Path God sees me, he should let me on the island. The Island Lord's heart has become extraordinary. It can be integrated into the body and driven by willpower, enabling faster communication. This is a new ability brought by the level 240 Island Lord's heart. These people are now speaking in the channel just to get acquainted with him, to express their stance, to become familiar with him, and to make their position clear. With the spring, the water circulates around the floating island, which can drive a rapid increase in organic matter on the entire island. The large size of the unfamiliar island opposite means that resources are relatively abundant, and there are more creatures. He couldn't understand how Zhou Tu farmed. Zhou Tu's high rating clearly indicates that it has planted a lot of plants. With this water, Zhou Tu's plants grew faster. He revealed that level 300 players could create springs on islands. And Zhang Yue also mentioned the unusual islands they encountered. The elf on the stone slab was much bigger than Bidia, who looked more like a child in comparison. Zhou Tu chuckled inwardly as he took the stone slab to show the elf, wanting to know what was going on. Stone slab wasn't entirely useless. At the very least, it gave the elf a goal, providing Bidia with a direction to become stronger. If he says to find plants for Bidia, he will find plants. These flowering herbs are the ones that had previously formed flower buds. No one else could foresee and avoid danger in advance. Some of the herbs were indeed mature, with thick roots and stems and full of juice. With medicinal soil, spirit, and water, as long as the seeds are kept, a cycle can be formed, allowing for the continuous collection of resources from other island owners. These rooms are located next to the herb fields, specifically for storing medicinal herbs, and are protected from windstorms thanks to the protective forests planted by the elves. Each time the island expands, the elves prioritize cultivating forests in their own magical areas, resulting in layers upon layers of trees. This illustrates the high value of the world tree, which is why it grows so slowly. Even if the elves leave in the future, Zhou Tu feels that with this skill, he can still maintain the growth of the special plants on the island. Level 270 increases the efficiency of plant mutation towards higher levels. By then, the number of plants on the island will exceed 10 million. The materials required for the next upgrade are 30, 800 soil and 180 stone. Digging efficiency is similar to the Tushin shovel, only 500. The shovel head is bigger, and it's even more efficient than the entrenching tool from Tushen for soft soil. The heart of the island owner is a wonderful thing. The materials are difficult to obtain, and even if they were sold, no one could afford to buy them. This wind turbine also requires rare materials, control boards, and energy storage devices. Ruan Yichen would also ask questions from time to time, which were all hidden costs. Using energy to increase the island's resource abundance through machinery and resource trading yields more soil than directly creating resources with the Island Lord's heart and exchanging them for soil. Simply put, to maximize energy efficiency, one must build a resource system unique to their island and achieve maximum profit, rather than simply using energy to create items. Zhou Tu remembers that when he was in college, his classmates in the dormitory would talk about national affairs. Zhou Tu does not intend to take any risks until he has the absolute power to defeat others. Secondly, of course, high-quality blueprints and plants and animals with relevant attributes should be acquired whenever possible. In the vast sky, Zhou Tu felt he should be able to meet quite a few people, and hoped he would be lucky enough to run into Shenqinghe. Wyverns are powerful flying creatures that hover over the volcano island in search of food. This island is a highly automated drone base, teeming with various surveillance and defense drones. These creatures are extremely dangerous, but the rewards are also very substantial. In the morning, Shenqinghe received the gun that Zhou Tu had traded for, and she was in a state of extreme joy. These days, she's been ordering the little girl around, training her obedience. Last month, this book was updated every morning at 8 o'clock without fail for 30 days. Someone had said before that there was a forest, but somehow the conversation turned into the island of Zhou Tu having forests, mountains, and lakes. As for whether there are lakes on the floating islands around Zhou Tu, it is highly likely that there are not. There is a golden treasure chest on it, but the snakes have longed for a new floating island. These eagles possess sharp metal talons and powerful energy weapons. The island is no match for them. Landing on this island would likely yield huge rewards, but these giant eagles possess sharp metal talons and powerful energy weapons. The lava and heat of the volcano island provide an ideal living environment for them. The information includes fire attribute energy stones, and Zhou Tu tends to believe that the dragons associated with these are energy creatures. The floating flight ability of the Island Lord's Heart cannot be used on other islands. Drones should be considered strategic weapons in the sky, acting as an eye that greatly increases exploration efficiency. There are special plants living on this island. Most importantly, there are stones with special energy that can replenish the energy of the Island Lord's Heart. The elves not only have to look after the forests on the island, but also help explore unfamiliar islands. This time, the island revealed a lot of information that neither Zhang Yiwei nor anyone else in the channel had disclosed. Judging from the comments in the channel, it's highly likely that they haven't encountered such a large island before. The area is too large to be easy to find. Previously, the items found on those low-level, small floating islands were of limited value. But now, seeing the feedback from these floating islands, almost all of them contained valuable items. The highest quality blueprint he had found so far was purple, which was the Prism Tower. Abundant resources, fiery red mangroves reflecting half the sky, and rolling hills covered with lush aquatic plants. Zhou Tu remained vigilant, paying close attention to the time of arrival on the island, and also to his exploration. He had planned everything out, but now he had no choice but to explore it. If any intelligent creature were to betray him in the future, he would develop and then destroy it. He opened the chat system and borrowed a water pump from Zhang Yiwei. Increasing the water circulation value should increase the flow of springs on the island. Zhou Tu watched as the water pump that had been delivered kept drawing water from the swamp, along with some mud, which could also be considered soil. Zhou Tu paid attention to the circulation value. Given the size of the organization and the number of people exploring, the probability of encountering a water island is not low. Even after manufacturing it, there isn't enough diesel fuel. In the sky world, the lack of matching facilities makes them difficult to use. This is also why Zhang Yiwei's organization only has a few water pumps. The probability of encountering a water island is not high, so the water pumps can be used interchangeably. When encountering a large island, pump water aggressively to increase the island's water circulation value. He looked down on people like Zhao Fan, whose words were always about price. Some people create pretty good items, list them on the trading channel, but no one buys them, and the platform gets stuck. If Gong Miaotong were like Zhao Fan, he would still look for someone else. He could feel that this crystal was somewhat related to the energy of the Island Lord's heart, just like the White Island Lord's crystal back then. It can restore 100 energy points to the Island Lord's heart. The 3 energy crystals found this time are equivalent to bringing a day's worth of energy. Now that the island has grown to 80 square meters, crafting tools with 300 energy points in the Island Lord's heart is not as efficient as during the storm. If they are indeed driven by these energy stones, their attack power and endurance will be unparalleled. He had previously used energy to stimulate the growth of plants and animals. Keeping the energy in his hands was useless, and turning it into the Island Lord's heart energy to stimulate plants and animals would be a loss. Converting it into the size of an island would be the most reassuring. It was almost 12 o'clock, and the people in the sky world had been exploring the island for several hours. When it comes to replacements, Zhou Tu prefers stone. If protective sand-blocking forests are not built, stone protective forests are still needed. He first informed Zhang Yiwei, as he wasn't sure if Zhang Yiwei still wanted the shovel. Upgrading the Island Lord's heart to level 300 allows it to merge into the body, enabling direct consciousness communication and making it incredibly convenient to observe chat channels. They can choose to reveal the less important information. This was planned in advance, and they can simply hide the damage transfer and attribute surge. Even though it's the same type of shovel, his shovels sell better than others, which is because the people of the sky world recognize his talent. The level 100 bonus was announced. The level 200 bonus was announced. The level 300 bonus was announced. After checking both the world channel and the regional channel, Zhou Tu had a sudden thought and went to the private chat channel. Just as Zhou Tu had predicted, Zhao Fan was repeatedly refreshing the chat with the heart of the Island Lord. Zhou Tu only mentioned the bonuses brought by the upgrade in the channel. With such high prestige, targeting someone in the channel is incredibly easy. A verbal attack would suffice. There are too many people trying to curry favor with Zhou Tu. Zhou Tu plans to select real talent from among them. The main reason for this lack of success was that the best items were guarded by powerful monsters, and he hadn't provoked these large islands. These miscellaneous items are considered miscellaneous by Zhou Tu because he has explored too many islands. Zhou Tu took out 2 bronze treasure chests. Zhou Tu was fairly satisfied with the drawing. The kettle was exactly the kind of glass kettle he was looking for. The materials arrived quickly. This is the advantage of being the first island lord. When he brought the elf, he promised to develop the island to a diameter of 1,000 meters. After some water was extracted from the swamp island, the water cycle value rose to 58.3. He observed the spring to see if the flow of the spring would change as the island grew larger. Island Lord's heart current level 309, energy, times out of 319. Currently, the floating island is already quite large. Compared to other human-owned islands in the sky, it is extremely large. Now as the island grows larger, the water cycle value is decreasing, proving that there is even less water available. With the island owner's heart reaching level 354, an additional hour has been added, bringing the time to connect to the unfamiliar island to 4 hours. With a spring, the focus shifts directly to small components like condensers, water collectors, and filters. The island's current development bottleneck lies in weaponry and defense. More than half of the day has passed. Taking advantage of this brief moment, Zhou Tu glanced at the bonus, which was 310 to 350. Xu Qingfeng was looking at the information in the channel, when suddenly many people appeared in the channel saying that they had encountered Zhou Tu's island. Zhou Tu's island is huge, covered in lush trees. There are even wind turbines on the giant island of Zhou Tu. They've already entered the electrical age. Having just seen the messages from these people in the channel about encountering Zhou Tu, he had a certain assumption in his mind. That means that Zhou Tu is actually a kind person at heart. He was just coming to the island to stay and make a living. Xu Qingfeng's expression darkened as he read the message from Zhou Tu. Zhou Tu was watching me from somewhere, but he didn't come out to see me. These black bulls are very powerful, but the trees in the forest on Zhou Tu's side are lush, so these black bulls naturally can't rush in. The minimum time for reconnection has arrived, and Zhou Tu immediately initiates the disconnection of the floating island to search for a new island. The island owner's heart is far from its original island. Perhaps Zhou Tu is in that grove of trees. Now finally, one oddball has emerged from among so many people. The grove of trees that Xu Qingfeng ran through was naturally the location of the salvia. The elves are quite observant, but it's obvious that they only go around the islands, briefly, or just connect to them without actually exploring them. Looking at the elf's snow-white legs, Zhou Tu fell into a brief moment of thought. So that's why they were afraid of being assigned to planting areas. Seeing that the bull's horns were about to hit him, Xu Qingfeng suddenly leaped over the grass, which was more than a meter high, and landed behind it. The large peacock flower he describes is not very effective against highly agile and alert animals. The 2 large, curved leaves are covered with huge, shark tooth-like thorns, and it was these plant thorns that pierced his legs. Since he was looking for death, he might as well die. His purpose in coming here was to take away the heart of the Island Lord. Every 100 levels, the quality and color of the Island Lord's heart change, meaning its essence changes. Zhou Tu looked at his panel and unlocked a new panel. After seeing the Vice Island Lord's thoughts, Zhou Tu felt the difference between forming an alliance and joining was truly significant. Zhou Tu gave the level 18 Island Lord's heart crystal to the elf. Upon hearing Zhou Tu's words, Betia got up and flew around. Once the Island Master's heart reaches level 70, its ability increases by 50% of the Island Master's recovery efficiency during rest. In the vast sky, even if one has the ability to see through information, the person one encounters may not necessarily be Shenqing He. Zhou Tu looked at the lone light bulb, installed 9 more light bulbs in the mechanical area, and hung up protective devices. With the power station, he has no shortage of electricity. After a series of operations, there were only 2 hours left before the next day. Shen Qinghe looked at the heart of the Island Lord. Since Zhou Tu went to such lengths to find her, she naturally wanted to demonstrate her value. Shen Qinghe had remained calm throughout, but at this moment she couldn't help but feel excited. From the moment she saw Zhou Tu and him on the same wavelength, she had been trying to change herself. His prestige in the sky was so high that people in the regional channel treated Zhou Tu with utmost respect. If Zhou Tu wanted to kill someone, he could just target the people on the blacklist. Shen Qinghe thought to herself as she worked. The island finally collided with their floating island, and in the gale, the 2 small islands were knocked and swayed by the wind. Suddenly a figure appeared at the edge of the floating island. Shen Qinghe and Li Yeru were stunned for a moment when Zhou Tu suddenly appeared, which was a bit dazzling. Shen Qinghe quickly buried her face in Zhou Tu's chest and wrapped her arms around his waist. The wind is too strong and the 2 women have no protection, so it's better to do it himself. The room was brightly lit, and Zhou Tu took off his protective suit, revealing his handsome face. There are already quite a few ingredients on the floating island, including rabbits, turtles, bamboo shoot herbs, mushroom, etc. It hasn't been windy all day, and Zhou Tu predicts that this wind will last for a long time. They previously exchanged 1.2 million units of stone, and the unused sand was used to reinforce the sandproof wall. At his level, the amount of stone needed for upgrading is considerable, so he stockpiled it in advance. Despite having some expectations in mind, Zhou Tu's arrival was still somewhat beyond their comprehension. The environment was now the same as their original world. This indicates that Zhou Tu acquired these items, but did not have time to use them. Only the powerful, brave, and strong are qualified to enjoy the sky world. The cowardly, hesitant, and timid are destined to suffer. Looking at the bubbling hot pot, Shen Qinghe knew in her heart that the gift of fate had already come with a price tag. If the little girl wore a maid outfit and Shen Qinghe wore a senior student outfit, the atmosphere would be even better. Shen Qinghe's was bigger, private chat was also started, and transactions began. After the Island Lord's heart absorbed the Island Lord's hearts of the two individuals, the data within these crystals was essentially recorded. After enduring so much hardship for so many days, she finally had a hot meal, and she was so moved that she almost cried. After finishing the hot pot, Shen Qinghe suggested that since today was a good day, she should sing to celebrate. Li Luoli gasped in surprise, her fingers intertwining, her face flushing bright red, her heart pounding like a deer's. Shen Qinghe stunned for a moment, her mind racing. These are all gifts from fate. It's not good to be too pretentious about them. Watching the two close the door, Zhou Tu pulled the blanket up and slowly closed his eyes. He spent the entire day exploring the island, either upgrading it or exploring it. The Island Lord's heart buffs recovery efficiency. Not that it prevents him from resting. This damn Zhou Tu was talking like a domineering CEO seducing someone. With Zhou Tu, her value was being maximized. She has the advantage of being there first, with so many people on the same channel, and now she's secured a spot on Zhou Tu's island. The World Channel is currently discussing Zhou Tu's floating islands. Discussing the islands around the world has become a common practice in the floating island world. Yesterday, Zhou Tu encountered too many people on the floating island. With the boost from the Island Lord's heart, he had slept for nearly times hours. The sand-blocking wall on Brother Zhou Tu's island is incredibly high. Finally, jobs need to be assigned to the two women. Choosing to wholeheartedly follow Zhou Tu is the right thing to do. On the other side of the sandproof wall, there is a plant-based sandproof wall, planted by the elves. Large-leaf shrubs and grasses mix together, forming a protective wall. If a high mountain is built on the island and spring water is placed on it, hydroelectric power could be generated. Looking around, Zhou Tu kept the thought to himself. It was just a fleeting idea. The Island Lord's heart is currently at level 354, with energy 364 out of 364. The materials required for the next upgrade are 35,400 soil and 3,000 eyes times 140 stone. Due to the significant level increase, he still felt the entire floating island trembling continuously. Zhou Tu saw that many poisonous bees had flown out of the beehives and were dancing in the air at the place where the beehives had been placed before. Island Lord's heart current level 452. Energy 462 out of 462. Each capture consumes 100 Island Lord's heart energy. Zhou Tu's eyes lit up when he saw the new ability that had been unlocked. After using the island, they were exiled. Furthermore, the current capture count is 1, which means that the island's area will increase in the future, and the island can capture new satellite islands. This tea plant encountered a water island at the very beginning, developed rapidly in the early stages, and has now dropped to number 100. They stood in the center, and as the island upgraded, a rumbling sound came from all directions. Their islands are being upgraded meter by meter. They've never seen Zhou Tu upgrade like that before. Others may still be worrying about timber, but Zhou Tu can simply go there and cut it down. She remembered that at the beginning, she hadn't looked carefully at the stockings. She originally intended to exchange them with Zhou Tu, but the wind blew them away. Suddenly, dark figures appeared in the distance, rushing and moving rapidly. Once the two arrived, they needed to quickly familiarize themselves with the island, and then get to work. Even Zhang Yiwei wouldn't be able to come to his island, it would just be this bonus. There are living things on the island that are constantly growing and increasing the score every moment. Maintaining a large area of forest requires too much water, and the floating islands are expanding rapidly, diluting the existing water with the increased land area. She understood as soon as he said it. He had just seen the location of the Island Lord's heart elf, but the guy was hiding and wouldn't come out. The elves have actually learned to wear clothes. The elf appeared and flew over to stand on Zhou Tu's shoulder. Large islands do not necessarily lead to rapid development. In this way, Barriers to development speed have been created on islands. Zhou Tu smiled. He was no longer the person who hadn't chosen Mizushima before. Currently, the island can only have one spring, and if there is too little water, the spring will still not produce any water. They don't even need to go to other islands to pump water. When aquaculture began, the island owner suggested building lakes on the floating islands, and now, with the islands growing larger, that suggestion has proven true. The island owner's heart will be added to the upgraded bonus. For example, speed, rapid energy boosts for plant and animal areas, and efficiency of island mutations for plants and animals. Zhou Tu then revealed the answer in her heart. If a leader of the Heavenly Kings cannot do whatever he wants, he is a failure. Needless to say, some people in the real world have already done this. Here are experimental subjects. They are incredibly powerful, capable of tearing apart steel with their bare hands and causing destruction. The formula for making the medicine. This came at the perfect time. When they arrived at the row of houses that had been built for miscellaneous items, Shenqinghe was already busy at work. Several blueprints were already on the table next to Shenqinghe. With the materials obtained from Shenqinghe, the motor can be turned into an electric pump to pump water. Considering that her brother Zhou Tu was ranked number 1 on the heavenly ranking, she wasn't so resistant to going to the island. She made a dragon claw hand gesture. She should just shut her mouth quietly. Being a noisy little girl might make brother Zhou Tu angry, especially for Zhang Yue's organization. This was a miracle drug. There were many things she didn't know how to choose. Taking Liaru away from Shenqinghe is a way of correcting Liaru. Looking at her backpack filled with compartments, Liaru felt like crying. The recipe was recorded using the island owner's heart and sent to Liaru. The elf is a plant collector, and now that his work is paying off, he collects any new plants he sees, including herbs. This formula is a reagent formula, similar to traditional Chinese medicine, with the key being the proportions. The island has enough ingredients to spare for mistakes. The recipe for this strength attribute enhancement doesn't specify how much strength it will increase. Zhou Tu checked the materials Shenqinghe had obtained for making several more water pumps and continued making them. Making the water pump used 50 energy points. Allocating energy to Shenqinghe, adding him as a friend used 50 energy points, and communicating consumed a lot of energy. The friend added by the deputy island lord still communicates under the name Shenqinghe, which is equivalent to his pseudonym. There are already 50 units of soil. This is the result of Shenqinghe's hard work. This also shows that Zhou Tu trusts her a lot. While Xiaorou doesn't have such great authority, she can only see the chat. Shenqinghe was a very useful secretary with strong workability. The Zhou Tu plan will not be sold at too high a price. There was nothing on the floating island before, not even a single tree. This is a huge pond, but it contains over a dozen crocodiles that are currently laying eggs. The message remains the same, indicating that despite the island's extensive development, it still poses no threat to the succubi. With the island lord's heart bonus and his information prompts, it's easy to survive. Of being a rootless duckweed, having no next meal after this one. Zhou Tu didn't bring the water pump with him at the beginning. Instead, he took the guns he had collected earlier. They have guns in their hands, and they also have trump cards up their sleeves. As Zhou Tu walked, he picked up a shovel and threw soil to scare away any small animals that might try to ambush him. First, drain the water, take away the crocodile eggs. After observing for a while, it seemed that this was the crocodile's territory, while the other crocodiles were far away. Soon the crocodile began to flip over in the pool. These water islands, once pumped out, become spring water through the island's own water cycle, which can then be sold directly. Shenqing continued selling miscellaneous items, while Liaru was also setting up a production line. Zhang Yue was having a headache. The details of the transaction already reveal this. Zhou Tu looked at Zhang Yue's message with a somewhat solemn expression. A powerful organization is the engine of the entire sky. Many good things are obtained by exchanging them with Zhang Yue's organization. That kind of thing is the magic potion for sky exploration. The number 1 on the heavenly ranking is terrifyingly powerful. When he found Mizushima, Liaru had already told him that the medicine was ready. Liaru and Shenqinghe both took a big gulp. Boiling a pot of herbal preparation can yield 400 units of soil. This has already solved the island's immediate crisis. Zhou Tu didn't want to worry about whether these crocodiles would survive on his island, because even if they died, he could still eat them. Thinking of this, Zhou Tu shot and killed the female crocodile. A strong person can gain the admiration of others with just a casual remark in the channel, and the same goes for Zhang Yue. When a company's strength reaches a certain level, the effects it brings far outweigh other factors, and rankings are the most valuable form of publicity. These friends also wanted to exchange other resources for power potions. Soil can make an island bigger, and these people are reluctant to exchange it, but they don't mind using other resources. He had just sent a message in the channel, and these people reacted immediately. There was still a long time to go, and he would see how things turned out later. This was a message she discovered while observing world chat. Probability of encountering humans was not very high, so it was fine as long as they didn't kill anyone. Population of the sky was already dwindling, and if the island's lord were to both plunder island resources and kill people, it would be disastrous. His island is so powerful, yet the first thing the other side said was still respectful. On Earth, tens of millions of people graduate every year in China, a competition that's incredibly fierce. These people may seem ordinary, some even working as food delivery drivers, but in other countries they would be considered highly skilled professionals. Let's upgrade the soil that Shen Qinghe worked on to the island first. Even if he were in charge of managing these miscellaneous items, he might not be able to do as well as Shen Qinghe. Planting a whole circle of trees now is quite a lot of work for the elves. With the boost from the spirits, the growth rate is accelerated, and the heart of the island lord provides a mutation bonus. Cultivate more seeds, collect them, and trade them for profit. With water, the trees on the outer perimeter started to grow. Now that the power-boosting potion is made, it can be exchanged for other equivalent items, resulting in a significant increase in the amount of miscellaneous items received. The room didn't have professional shelves. It was called a warehouse, but it didn't look like a warehouse at all. With so many supplies and no professional shelves or sorting staff, Shen Qinghe was under a lot of pressure. Li Yiru ran to Shen Qinghe's side with an item in her arms. With the establishment of a formula medicine production line, resources from the Sky World flowed continuously to Zhou Tu's location. Zhou Tu has a good reputation in the channel, and many people specifically request Zhou Tu for their transactions. After much deliberation, Shen Qing decided to place her bet early, since no one could say for sure that there might be an even more outstanding woman later on. For someone like him who has high standards for food, having a good chef is a good choice. He originally wanted to stop Li Yiru, but Li Yiru wanted to show off, so he couldn't very well stop her. From then on, poisoning became one of his methods. Some of the electronic products were ones he had collected before, while others were acquired today, giving them a touch of modernity. Zhou Tu didn't pay attention to these changes that resembled home. After many rounds of soil interception and upgrading to larger islands, the area of people's floating islands has now increased to a certain extent. Before they could even feel happy, they faced the problem of the floating island's soil being blown away by strong winds. Just as Zhou Tu opened the materials needed for the prism tower to see which ones were missing, he noticed that the wind had stopped blowing. The sand in Zhou Tu's hand, like sand in an hourglass, gently slipped from his fingertip.